So that's going to be the topics for this week. So we're left with about 2 more weeks, right? So, I mean, excluding this week, so including this week, it's about 3 more weeks. So next, this week is going to be all around using, command line interface, the Python SDK that AWS offers to automate the AWS platform, and also to use CloudFormation, right? I mean, these are all quite important for you to understand. So, but before we actually start into the Python SDK of AWS, let me spend about half an hour just to take you through Python itself, right? Python is a very simple programming language, and Python is a very powerful programming language. So let's spend about 30-40 minutes to know the basics of Python, and also do some basic stuff like installing Python and creating our first hello world program. Just give me a second, let me share my screen and bring up the console. Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay, so the best way to learn Python is to kind of follow something like this tutorial points, or W3 schools. They've got good um, step by step um, you know um, explanation for everything in Python. Okay, so it gives you a very good understanding. But for the sake of this, we're going to follow this one, follow tutorials point, because I find tutorials point as quite uh, good and quite descriptive. Let's follow this. So what is Python, right? So Python, into explaining you what Python is. How many of us know Python in the class and have used Python? Please raise your hands. Okay, so about 10, 12 of you, correct? Okay, cool. Okay, all right. So Python is basically it's a general purpose programming language, right? I mean, it's basically an interpreted. It uses an interpreter to interpret the language, right? And it does not compile, right? Unlike Java or C Sharp, right? So which compiles the program and then which creates a executable, correct? Like you take a C Sharp or you take even Java, it executes a class file, .class file, right? And eventually it creates a jar file, right? So, but Python is not like that. Python is a object-oriented programming language, but it's an interpreter, right? So where you pass, it's like shell script, correct? Where you have shell script, it's an interpreter, correct? I mean, you write the shell script and you execute the shell script using one of those compilers. Using one of those interpreters, which you specify in the shebang, right? And then it uses the bash to go ahead and execute the shell script, right? So Python is also very similar. It's an interpreted language, object-oriented, and interactive and high-level programming language, right? It was created by Guido van Rossum during 1985-1990. Okay, like Perl, right? I'm not sure how many of you have programmed with Perl. Okay, Perl was also quite similar, right? I mean, Perl was also very popular. In fact, I remember coding using Perl in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. I have programmed with Perl. Similarly, Python is also an interpreted language, object-oriented language, but it's very, very popular and it's very powerful, right? A lot of automation, a lot of programs are built using Python, right? And this, I mean, day by day, the support for Python is only increasing, right? And a lot of developers, a lot of communities around the world are actually, contributing to Python in the form of, supporting the Python language, and also in terms of creating more and more libraries for Python. And again, if you are a machine learning, if you are a AI analytics developer, Python is the natural choice for you because of the support that Python gives with respect to some of those algorithms, right? So, for example, you want to quickly implement a program with decision tree algorithm, you get a complete Python library available for it. You just download the library, make use of that library, you're done, right? You don't have to write that entire algorithm. You don't have to code that entire algorithm, right? You just need to pass the parameters to that, right? And it's also a GNU, General Public License, which means that it's open source. Okay, why to learn Python, right? I mean, Python is high-level interpreted language, and all of that is fine. And there are several key advantages of learning Python, because it has a very few syntactical constructions than other languages, right? I mean, what is syntax? Syntax is how you represent the code, correct? How you represent the code? Like, for example, in Java, you want to say print, you'll say system.out.println, right? And then you give the text, correct? Out here in Python, it has very fewer syntactical constructions than other languages. It's very easy to understand, and it uses English keywords very frequently, whereas other languages use punctuations, right? So in fact, if you see, Python is a must for students and working professionals to become a great software engineer, especially when they're working with the web development domain. There are a few advantages that is being listed. One is it's interpreted. It is processed at runtime by the interpreter. It is not compiled. A30, can you please go on mute? Okay, so Python is basically processed at the runtime by the interpreter, right? You don't need to compile your program before executing it. This is again very similar to Perl and PHP, but it's interactive, right? You can sit at the Python prompt and interact with the interpreter directly to write your programs, right? Whatever, say for example, you want to say print, correct? Print hello world. You can just straight away go to the Python command line and then type print hello world. You should get the answer then and there. Okay, and it's also object-oriented style, right? It supports object-oriented style, where you use encapsulation, inheritance, and all of that, right? And then it's a beginner's language. I mean, they say it's a beginner's language, but it's a great language. I mean, a lot of advanced programs and a lot of advanced applications make use of Python, right? And Python is used widely in building automation, right? And it's a very lightweight language as well. Okay, what are the characteristics? It supports functional and structured programming methods as well as object-oriented programming. It can be used as a scripting language, right? Or can be compiled to bytecode for building large-scale applications, right? You can follow either ways, like how we learned shell scripting. It can be used as a shell. It can be used as a script, and you can run it in shell as well. Or you can also compile it to bytecode for building large scale applications, right? So where you are building a large application and Python is one module is actually using Python, you can also do that. And it also provides very high level dynamic data types. What are data types? Data types are the ones that you use to handle the data within your program, within your programming language. Like you have your string, you have your integer, you have your float, right? And things like that, right? So those are all, data types. Right, and it also supports the dynamic type checking, because if your code gets compromised and if you have a strict type check, then it also has a type checking, dynamic type checking. It supports automated garbage collection. Garbage collection is again a mechanism used within programming languages or frameworks, runtimes, where it cleans up the memory, right? Because as part of our programs, we instantiate so many variables and we use memory, correct, extensively within the program to make use of the memory to process our data and store objects inside memory and reuse those objects during the life cycle of the program, correct? But many a times what happens is we just leave objects in memory without cleaning it up, correct? So garbage collection is a mechanism within every programming language or every framework which runs the garbage collection to identify orphaned memory objects or memory spaces, and then it reclaims the memory so that you don't lead uh, into a memory leak. It's called memory leak. Usually, what is a memory leak? When you write a program and then you keep using the memory without releasing. At some point in time, you're going to make use of the full system's memory, and you're going to crash the system. It's called memory leak. So that such memory leak will get addressed using garbage collection. And yeah, it can be easily integrated with C, C++, COM, ActiveX, Corba, and Java, right? Okay, so if you see here, hello world using Python, it's a very simple, print hello Python, right? I mean, it's just a print. It'll print it on the screen. Okay, and what are the applications of Python? It's easy to learn. It's easy to read. I mean, trust me, just invest about 2 to 3 days time, you will learn Python. Okay, I'm only going to ignite the spark in you today. After this, it's all, you can go and learn it by yourself, right? Easy to maintain, a broad standard library. It has got a broad standard library, cross-platform compatible. It is compatible with Linux, Unix, Windows, Mac, right? And it has got an interactive mode. It's portable, right? You write your program in one platform, you take it to any platform, it will run. Okay, and it's extendable. You can also extend your Python interpreter because it's open source, and you can customize it. Databases, right? I mean, you may wonder, if I build programs using Python, how will I connect to database, right? I mean, usually when in Java or .NET or other programming languages, we have JDBC and ODBC, correct? Which provides the ability for your application code to connect to databases, right? So out here, if you see, you have a major, interfaces with all the databases, right? Using Python also, you can connect to almost all the databases. Yeah, and it is not just a command line; it also provides GUI, okay, and graphical user interface, and it's scalable, right? I mean, you can make Python scale, and these days, if you see microservices, right? I mean, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of microservices development style, right? So where a lot of microservices in the containerized world are built using Python, right? And you can just use Python to build those microservices integrated with your database that is responsible for that microservice, and then you can just get it going. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and install Python. Okay, you can install Python in all of these environments. Okay, but what we're going to do is today is we're going to install Python in Windows. Okay, because most of us use Windows, and those who of you are using Linux, I'll just tell you. I mean, if you're using Ubuntu, I'll just tell you how to install Python on Windows. Okay. So for installing it in Windows, it's very simple. Open a web browser and go to python.org/downloads. Follow the link for the Python installer where you need. I mean, it will automatically detect your operating system in many cases. If it doesn't, then you just go and figure out the right version for your operating system and then install it, right? And it installs it using the Microsoft installer. So just install it and then follow the steps and then install it. And as part of the installation, it is also going to set some path to Python, and it's going to add some environment variables to your system so that you'll be able to install it. Okay, so let's go. And I'm just going to my Windows box. I have python.org/downloads. It automatically detected my version. You download the latest version for Windows, right? So I'm just going to, and if you want to install it for other programming languages, You just go here, Python for Windows, Linux, Mac OS, or other. Okay. So with Linux, it's going to be slightly different. I'll show you how to install it in Linux, maybe in a Ubuntu. I mean, I see that a lot of you are using Ubuntu. So I'll provision one Ubuntu machine, and then in the meantime, let me just provision that and come back just a second. I'm just going to stop the screen share. Okay. I'm here on my screen. I'll just share my screen back. Okay. I'm here. Let me just provision on Ubuntu. Yeah, I'll just go for Ubuntu. Yeah, I'll just go for this. Ubuntu 20.04, t2.micro. I'll provision it in my VPC, public subnet, leave it name Python EC2, Python lab EC2. Security group, I'll just use my existing security group. Yeah. Review on launch my RPL Mumbai lab keeper. Launch it. Yeah, let it get launched. In the meantime, let's install it in Windows and come back. Okay. So yeah, I'll just download Python. It's going to ask me to save the file, which all of us are aware. Just save the file, just open it. Yeah. If you want, you can customize the installation and check this, add Python 3.9 to path, right? Yeah, and my suggestion is always use the latest version of Python, right? Which has a lot of, I mean, if you see, these are all the releases. Oops. Yeah. So if you see, these are all the releases. It started with Python 2.7, but now 2.7 is end of life. I mean, even AWS has stopped the support for 2.7. Okay, it is AWS support. AWS actually recommends anything above 3.7. Okay, so I mean, I would recommend all of you to use anything above 3.7. So we'll use the latest one, which is 3.9. Yeah, and I'll add it to the path. Okay, and install it for all the users. Just say install. It includes all the standard installation like pip and all of that. So just install it. Okay, you can also disable this. What it does is changes your machine configuration to allow programs, including Python, to bypass the 260 character max path limitation. Just disable that. Yeah, I think setup is successful. Just close it. Just open a command prompt, right? And then just say Python. Okay, so path is not set. So let us see. I have to close this and reopen my Windows command prompt. Let me see if the path is set now. CMD. Yeah, yeah. I just closed my command prompt and reopened it. Yeah, Python is installed. Yeah, See, print hello RPL champs is giving printing hello RPL champs, correct? Yeah, print 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, cool. I think it's working fine. So Control Z. Yeah, just exited. Okay, so we have just installed it in Windows. Similar way, let's install it in Linux as well for those who of you using Linux. Okay, Python EC2 lab. I'll just grab the public IP address. Let me just go back here and okay, probably the IP address would have changed. No, it's IP 4.225.13.65. Let me just check. Yeah, 13.65. Okay, that does not change. So I think I should be able to connect to. I'm going to grab my putty. Okay, here it is Ubuntu @ Okay, it's not a EC2 user because I've provisioned an Ubuntu instance, right? So just click on connect, use SSH client, and you will see that you have to use Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the default username, not EC2 user. EC2 user is only for Amazon Linux. Okay, whereas for Ubuntu, it is Ubuntu at whatever public IP address. Okay, Ubuntu at this @ and just save it as Python lab. Okay, and then use the auth key, RPL Mumbai lab session, save. Yeah, I'm just open this. Yeah, it's connected. Let me quickly change the settings. Yeah, I'll just say sudo apt update. Okay, let me first update my operating system. It's like how you do sudo yum update, right? It's like that. Apt is the repo for apt is the command for in Ubuntu to install softwares and manage the softwares. Yeah, so let it install, let it upgrade it. In the meantime, we'll come back and we'll just review the other steps to install it on Unix and Linux. So in Unix and Linux, you can install it in multiple ways. Either you can download the zipped file and then you can just go ahead and you can make is basically you're building it from fresh, right? Or you can also use one of the repositories to download the latest version and install it. And we are going to use the repository to download it and install. Okay. So what we're going to do now is let's install Python on Ubuntu. Yeah. So here you have to first install some software properties common, some libraries are there. You have to first install those. Yeah, then you can say sudo apt install Python 3.8. So then it should be done. I think that's the most simplest way of installing Python. Okay, so yeah, sudo apt update. Okay, I'm just going to install this. Okay, so yeah, it's done. So now let me just go and okay, see, this is basically a repository. We're adding a new repository which has got some which has got the latest this thing, but I don't know. I don't want to use that. I'll just use this directly because my Amazon repository will have all the latest ones. Okay. Okay, but before that, let me see if Python is already there. Sometimes it comes with Python. Okay, Python is not there. Python 3. Yeah, Python 3 is already installed. So it comes by default with Python 3.8.5. Okay, so but still, how do you install it? Sudo apt install Python 3.8. Yeah, so it's already installed. So it's going to give you a message saying that it's already set to the newest version. Okay, so it's not going to install, but if you want to install it on your Ubuntu, you can just follow this and install, follow these steps. It's pretty simple. Sudo apt update, and install this software properties common, and then sudo apt install Python 3.8. That's it. We are good. It'll install, and it's also going to set the path for you automatically. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's come back. So once it is installed, okay, your environment is set up. You're good. You're able to actually set your path as well. If you go to this one, I'll minimize my putty. I'll go to my Windows command prompt because that's what we're going to see. So now here, if you want to see the path, how do you check the path? You can just go to system. I can go to the environment variables. Yeah, edit the environment variables. If you go to the environment variables, yeah, if you see this user variable, it automatically added the Python on the path. See, Python is already added in the path. Okay, so yeah, we are good with that. So let me just come back, close it, cancel it. So that's how the installer took care of adding Python. Okay. Okay, that's done, and all the environment variables are set. Okay, so now if you see, just go to the command prompt and run Python. If it is Ubuntu or Linux, you just go to the shell and then run Python. You should be able to see that. You should be able to see that it's responding. Okay, so let's first go through the basic syntax of Python. Okay. So in the interactive mode, as I said, once you hit Python, right, it gives you the prompt. This is the Python's prompt. This, once I hit Python, this is the prompt that I get. Right, the 3 greater than symbols. That is the prompt that I get. So in that prompt, you can just, as I type sometime back print hello world, you can print that. So that's going to give you the, it's going to straight away interpret and tell you what it is. Okay. Plus, you can also create a script. Okay, the same hello world, you can just create a script and then run that script. Right, I'll show you how to do that. Open a notepad. In notepad, just say print hello RPL champs colon semicolon. Just save this file, save as. Yeah, so which folder we are in? Okay, I'll just put it in documents itself. Hello.py. To give hello.py and embrace it in double colons, double quotes, so that it creates it as a Python file. Okay, so it's created it as a Python file. So C users administrator, right? I will just come out of this. I will go to my documents. Yeah, documents is where I have my hello Python. Just say Python hello.py. Yeah, see it. I'll just clear the screen and then do it once again. dir, you see hello.py, py, Python hello.py. Yeah, it's going to just execute the program and print hello RPL champs. Okay, that's basically a script based programming, right? And you can also do the same thing in Linux, where if you all remember our famous shebang that we use, correct? So you use the shebang, right? And then you can just you're instructing the shell script to use the Python uh, as the interpreter instead of the bash. Usually what we give user slash bin slash bash, correct? But here we are asking the shell script to use Python as the variable. So let's try this out. Let's go back to our putty. Okay. Python is already installed. I'm right now in my home directory. Okay, I'm just going to create a file called vi hello.py. Okay, and then I'll just put my shebang there. I'll just copy paste this. Yeah, so I've just put my shebang here. Shebang is basically the hash exclamatory slash user slash bin slash Python print hello Python. Okay, so let's save this. Yeah, cat hello Python is there. So now what you have to do is you have to basically change the properties of this, change the file permissions to execute also. This is currently not executable, right? So just say chmod and give it to everybody. Just make it to 777 hello.python. So which means it has made, you have made this file an executable file. Okay. So now what you do is you just go like how we usually run shell scripts, just run it that way, /hello.py. Okay, so Python is not there in user bin. So you have to give it an, wait, let's check cd / user bin. Yeah, it's Python 3. It's not Python, it's Python 3. Okay. So let's change hello world.py to Python. Use Python 3, not Python. Because Python is the old Python. I'm just making it Python 3. Okay, so now let me just clear the screen and print it. / hello.python. Missing parenthesis. Okay, let's do that. So it's doing a strict type check, right? Hello.python. Let's use actually the same code, right? Let's not change the code. Print. Oops. Hello RPL champs. I'm using the same code between Windows and Linux. Okay, this is the same code that I'd used there also, right? Yeah, print hello RPL champs, right? So I'll use the same code here also. Yeah, see it prints. So it prints the same hello RPL champs and Linux, and the same code is running in Windows also. Okay, so that's the cross-platform compatibility that it gives. It's the same code actually. It's the same code. Print hello RPL champs. Three exclamation. Three exclamation. Okay. 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 So then it has certain identifiers, right? Python identifier is a name used to identify a variable, function, class, module, or other object. An identifier starts with a letter A to Z or A to Z or an underscore, followed by zero or more letters, underscores and digits 0 to 9. Okay. So it also does not allow punctuation characters such as at the rate, dollar, and percentage within identifiers. Okay. Okay. So if you see here, see these two are different, right? I mean, it's case sensitive, correct? Manpower and manpower are two different identifiers in Python. Naming conventions are class names start with an uppercase letter. All other identifiers starts with a lowercase letter. Starting an identifier with a single leading underscore indicates that the identifier is private, right? How those who of you are aware of Java or C Sharp, you can instantiate a private variable, correct? So similarly, here if you use an underscore, it becomes private within the execution of the class itself. Two leading underscore indicates a strongly private identifier. If the identifier ends with two trailing underscores, identifier is a language defined special name. So it uses a special name, right? Okay. Anyways, when you actually do some examples around this, you will understand all of this. So these are all reserved words. Okay, like print, we just used print, correct? So print is a reserved word, right? If you use print, it means that you're telling the interpreter to print something. So it will do a syntax check on that. So similarly, all these and, exit, not, assert, finally, or, break, for, pass, class, from, print, continue, global, raise, if else, return, while. Okay, these are all used used um, as reserved words. Also, Python, since it is syntactically a strong language, you have to follow the syntax quite clearly, and indentation is part of the syntax. Okay, so where you have if-else conditions, right? So if true, then give an indentation and print true. Else colon, give an indentation and print false, right? If you use it like this without any indentation, then it's going to throw an error. It's not going to accept that. Your interpreter will not be able to understand this. Like it's like YAML, right? And YAML also, you use those tabs and you use those indentation lines and indentation. So here in this case, it's rigidly enforced in Python. So you have to use it. So let's do this small example here. Yeah, so it's giving a small note here. Do not try to understand the logic. Just make sure you understood various blocks, even if they are without braces. Okay. So you're just importing something, and then you're trying something. You've given some indentation. Okay, it's an indentation, and then you're doing a while loop. You're starting a while loop here. Okay, and then you're doing some stuff here with some more indentation, nested indentation. Okay, so let me just run this. I'm just going to go to my putty. I'll just say vi example 1.py. Okay, just pasted it. You go to the top and change this to Python 3. user bin Python 3. chmod 777, or make it chmod plus x, example1.python. Yeah, we just made it. Okay, so let me just execute ./example1.python. You see here, missing parenthesis and call to print. Did you mean print? There was an, okay, it's actually using, so here, we have to actually have braces here, because Python 3 uses all parentheses wherever it is print. So it's actually giving a syntax error, but that's okay. I mean, ignore those syntax errors. When we write for Python 3.8, it uses parentheses after print, which is strongly enforced. Okay, but if you see here, primarily, you are using indentation to execute, to basically say that this is the try, okay, and this is like except IO error, right? I mean, you're basically printing a error out here where it's like a catch statement, right? Okay, and if you want to execute multiple line statements, right? So where you have multi-line statements, you use a slash at the end. Okay, so you want to say item 1 plus item 2 plus item 3, right? But you want to put it in multiple lines. You have to indent it in such a way that you indent it like this, align it exactly at this level, and then give a slash at the end, a trailing slash, backslash at the end. Okay, so that's something that needs to be done. Similarly, if you have arrays or if you have something like this, you can just, you don't need a slash, but you just continue it, but align it in such a way that it continues with the previous line. Okay, and quotes. When do you use double quotes, single quotes, and triple quotes? Okay. Okay. So now, if you see here, Python accepts single, double, and triple quotes to denote string literals as long as the same type of quotes start and ends the string. It's not like you can start with a single quote and end with a double quote, right? You have to start with a single quote and end with a double quote. Sorry, single quote. Okay, and the triple quotes are used to span the string across multiple lines. For example, all the following are legal, right? So if you see here, word equal to single quote word, sentence equal to this is a sentence, full sentence, you can just use a double quote. If you are writing a complete paragraph, then use triple quotes. Comment, use hash, that's the comment. Okay, and yeah, so it's like you give raw input, right? I mean, it's like you're waiting for the user to it's like read and shell script. We learned about the read and shell script, right? So here in Python, it's like if you use raw input, that's where you're waiting for the user to give you the raw input, right? I'll just go hello.python.
Sir, raw input doesn't work in Python 3.
Three, okay. Okay, so probably this is okay. Probably, what we should do is we have to basically look at Python 3 syntax. Do you guys follow any tutorials for Python 3, which is used? Okay, I'll go for two.
W3 schools.
Okay, W3 schools even. Okay, this is like Python 3's. Okay, so now what I was referring to was Python 2. Okay, so let's go here to Python 3. Okay, so this is the Python 3 tutorial, and yeah, W3 schools is also good. But is this Python 3 or Python 2?
Python 3, sir.
This is Python 3. Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, it's Python 3. Okay. In fact, it has got a small online interpreter, right? You can just do it here also by print hello world, print hello RPL. Just run. Yeah, it quickly runs that. Yeah, you can also do this. You can also test it here, but I wouldn't suggest using these because you should have hands-on experience installing it from scratch, setting the environment variables, and then running it. So that way it's good there. Yeah, W3 schools is also good. So what is the identifier in Python 3 for accepting the input?
Just input, sir.
I've not used Python 3 extensively. Just input, right? Okay, let me just
Yeah.
go ahead and. Yeah, instead of raw input, it's just input, correct? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so it's just waiting for me to input. Okay, cool. Okay, I guess, I mean, a lot of you are aware of Python, you've used Python, but those who are, getting introduced to Python for the first time today, right? So I hope you kind of get a understanding of how to install Python and how to basically how Python works, right? And if you see, Python has got very similar structure like shell scripting, right? No, you can basically go through this and perform this. Like W3 schools is very good. Even tutorials points is good, right? You can use this. What I would suggest you is, uh, start with the basic thing, right? Then before going to advanced. Right now, I mean, if you're keen to learn Python, take your knowledge levels to an advanced level, you can do that. But for the sake of this course, I think all of us just need to understand the basics of Python, so that we can actually use the Boto3 framework, the Python framework SDK that AWS offers, right? And we can use that to build a good amount of automation, right? And in fact, I'm going to show you down the line. There's something called Lambda in AWS, Lambda functions. It's basically a function as a code. It's a serverless architecture, so where you can use Python within a Lambda function, and you don't need to set up any environment. You don't need to, set up any EC2 instance, right? You just write your code, put that code inside a Lambda function, right, and run the Lambda function, and Lambda function should be able to execute that code for you using Python. Okay, and Lambda function uses a lot of programming languages. It supports a lot of programming languages. You can use that to automate a lot of things. Okay, that's something that we're going to see subsequently. Okay, but what I would suggest is, I mean, start with the basics. Right, go through all of this. It's all pretty simple, straightforward, right? And trust me, I mean, once you learn Python, you're going to basically take your knowledge levels and you'll be able to. Yeah, A30, can you please go on mute? I would request everybody to stay on mute so that we don't disturb the rest of the people. All right, so you can go through all of this, right? And you can try all of this on your environment. Don't try it in the live demo, okay? Because that's not going to give you the hands-on expertise. try all of this in your own computers, your own laptops, desktops, or your own virtual machines that you have. Try all of this there, right? And then get a complete hands-on. It's very pretty straightforward, right? And you can uh, follow this, and you can learn a lot. And in fact, at some point in time, if you go to advanced, I believe, let me just see where you can get libraries. Okay, so you're basically importing modules here. If you see this import support, it's basically downloading, it's importing the support module. Okay, and the support is the module which has got this print function. Okay, so like this, you have so much of support for Python. In fact, if you just go on Google for Python libraries, you'll get a lot of libraries for Python. Yeah, so this is the official standard library documentation for Python 3.9. If you want, you can just make it 3.8. Yeah, so you get so much. If you see here, Internet Protocol support, it has an SMTP library, FTP library, Telnet library. We have done some Telnet, correct? There's a Telnet library, IP address library, right? HTTP servers. So much of support is there for Python. Yeah, so it's like for debugging and profiling. So has any of you built great programs in Python as part of your college projects, or as part of your personal freelancing, or as part of your hobby? Can somebody talk about a good library or a good program that any of you have built? Just unmute and speak about it. It can be anything. Just go ahead and just unmute and speak about it. Somebody from the boys were, someone was giving, was talking about this input, right? So who was that? Z?
Z003.
Z003. Yeah, Z003. I'm sure you would have done some good programs. You want to talk about it?
Like I've done only some basic programs like password validator.
Yeah, speak about it. No worries at all. Just speak about it. What did you do in the password validator? Can you show that program if you have it handy to everybody?
Yeah, sir. I mean, I don't have it handy now.
Okay, but just speak about it. What did you do? What libraries did you use? What is the functionality of the program? How did it help? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, sir, I haven't used any libraries or modules. It's
Hmm.
like just password validator, which means um, if I mean I've used only if I mean conditions and loops.
Hmm.
Uh, like the password which you are entering should be greater than 8 characters. I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
code is uh, the whatever password we are entering, it must be greater than or equal to 8 characters, and
Mm-hmm.
that 8 characters should consist of some 2 to 3 special characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've given at the rate and dollar. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever password we've entered, it should contain $dollar and hash.
Mm-hmm.
It is must in the password. So it will
Mm-hmm.
check for whether I mean, I will give the condition first. Password enter must be greater than 8 characters. If it is eight
Mm-hmm.
characters means then we'll check for other conditions, whether the character contains, whether the password contains these special characters,
Mm-hmm.
hash and dollar. Yeah, that's it, sir. Just some loops and conditions only. No
Okay.
modules I've used.
No modules are used. Okay. Great.
Yeah,
Excellent. Excellent. Very nice. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so that's just an example of how Python can be used. But again, Python has lot of other things. I mean, it has so much of libraries. Like as I said, Python has data mining libraries, data science libraries. Okay, like TensorFlow. There are TensorFlow libraries available for Python, where you can use TensorFlow to in your AI/ML programs. Yeah, for data visualization libraries are there in Python. Yeah, I mean, we are just only scratching the surface, but yeah, Python is a very powerful language. Okay, Python is a language for the digital world, truly the digital world. It's very lightweight and very extensible. Okay, okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you these, and then we'll quickly shift gears to the Boto AWS library for Python. Okay, tutorials point and W3 schools. These are good resources for learning Python. Okay, okay, all right. So, okay, cool. So now let's come back. Let's shift gears and I'll go to AWS SDK. Okay. So AWS has got an SDK. So what is SDK? SDK is called Software Development Kit. Okay. So now AWS has got so many services. AWS has got so much of things within its own its platform. Correct. So now it's not possible to just use only the console every time, right? So where you use the AWS EC2 console, right? I mean, it's not always feasible just to use the console, right? Because with console, a human has to interact with the console and then perform actions, right? Which is not possible all the time. If you have to achieve a level of automation, a level of optimization, you need an ability. The platform should have an ability to expose APIs and expose SDKs, which can uh, which can be used to automate things, which can be used to automate end to end of the platform, right? And you can use this to kind of uh, you know uh, build programs around it or use it in other programs and automate it. Okay, so now that's where, if you see, as I said, everything in IAM, right? And IAM, everything is a API function, correct? So even if you log into the console, behind the scenes, it uses an API and it uses an SDK, right? So SDK is again another layer on top of your API, using the programming language, using your own favorite programming language. There are SDKs available. You use those SDKs. At the end of the day, the SDK also uses the API to interact with the AWS platform. Okay, it's just a wrapper around API. It's a wrapper using your programming language, your favorite programming language. And in this case, if you see, uh, Boto3 is basically a SDK for Python. Using Python, if you want to build programs that you want to use to automate your AWS platform, you have to use Boto3. Okay, like S3. Right? We learned about S3 the previous weeks. In S3, you want to use S3 within your program, correct? So you have to basically use, and your programming language is Python. So then you have to use the Boto3 SDK for Python within your Python application to interact with S3. And for example, you're building a program in Python, an application in Python, basically an image library, okay, or a photo library or a Photoshop, correct? So now you want your users to log into your website, correct? And you want them to upload their photos into this. So eventually, when they upload photos, it goes into S3. S3 is the target where the photos get stored, right? In such a case, what you do is you basically use a Boto3 uh, Python library, right? And then you use Boto3 Python library to perform all your S3 related functions like put operations, get operations, and all of that, right? Put object, get object. Right? We're going to see all of them, but before that, what we need to do is we first need to install Boto3 in our environments, right? So how do you install Boto3? You just use pip. Pip is basically a Python service. It's a Python tool which is used to install Python libraries within your environment. Okay, it's called pip, P-I-P. What is pip in Python? Pip is a package manager for Python packages and modules that you can install within your Python environment. Okay, so you can just go here and let me install pip install Boto3. I'll say pip install. Okay, pip is not found. Let me just go to my Windows. So pip is there. Yeah, pip is there. Okay, so let me install it here. Pip install Boto3. Yeah, so it's just going to download the Boto3 and it's going to install the Boto3, which is the library for AWS SDK. Okay, so it's installed, successfully installed Boto Core, Boto3, and all of them. However, it gave me a warning. It said you're using pip version 20.2.3. However, version 20.2.4 is available. Right? It says you can upgrade it. Okay, that's okay. You can upgrade it. I'll just do Python -m pip install -- upgrade pip. Yeah, successfully installed pip 20.2.4. Okay. So similarly, let me just install pip in my Ubuntu as well. Install pip and Ubuntu 20.04. Yeah, sudo apt install Python 3-pip. Okay, so I'll just go to my putty. Yeah, so just install. Okay, probably I didn't try pip 3. Okay, so I tried only pip. So pip is for Python 2.x, whereas anything in Linux, if you want to install, so you can run both Python 2.x and 3.x side by side. So that's where if you see Python 3.x, you'll have to use Python 3 instead of using Python. When you say just Python, it will by default take it to 2. So similarly, I think pip should also already be there. Maybe I'm just reinstalling it. But if you want to use pip in Linux, you have to say pip3, pip3. Like how you said pip Python 3, here you should say pip3. It should be there by all possibilities, but I'm just reinstalling it. Okay, so let it install. In the meantime, let's install the Aws SDK, pip install Boto3. In my Windows, I'll just go to pip install Boto3. Okay, I'm just using, yeah, I think we have already installed it. So pip install Boto3 is there. Okay, and then let me come to Linux, and then, yeah, it's installed. So I'm going to use pip3. Yeah, pip3 is there. Pip3 install Boto3. Yeah. Okay, so we have installed Boto3 within Boto3 library is there. So now we are good to actually get started with writing small programs. Okay, using the Boto3 on AWS. Okay, so now we have installed Boto3. Okay, so now, what you need to do is you also have to have AWS CLI installed. Okay, so now what is CLI? Command line interface. Okay, let's keep the Boto3 package aside for the time being, right? Let's first learn about command line interface, and then let's come to Boto3. So now what is command line interface? Initially, in one of those sessions, I told you that there are three ways in which you can interact with the AWS platform. The first way is you can use the console, the AWS management console. The second way is you can use a command line interface. And the third mechanism is to use a SDK or API. Okay, you can use an API, which in turn you're using an SDK, which is SDK is nothing but an encapsulation of your API. It's basically you're bundling everything within an SDK to invoke your APIs, correct? So now here you have your AWS command line interface, which like how you write dir, right? In your, so this is basically a command line, right? When you say ls-l, when your Linux is listing all the files that are there, right? So similarly, AWS has also got a command line interface like this. Okay, but you need to install that command line interface and configure that command line interface, right? Okay, so how do we install it? Let's just go to installing the command line interface. Okay, AWS Command Line Interface is an open source tool that enables you to interact with the AWS services using commands in your command line shell. With minimal configuration, the AWS Command ACLI enables you to start running commands that implement functionality equivalent to that provided by the browser-based AWS console, management console from the command prompt in your terminal. So you can use a Linux shell or you can use a Windows command line using Windows command prompt or PowerShell. How many of you know what a PowerShell is in Windows? Can somebody talk about what a PowerShell is? Okay, so you have your command prompt in your Windows, right? Which is just the basic command prompt. Similarly, in Windows, you also have something called PowerShell. So you can build a lot of automation using PowerShell. PowerShell is very similar to what you see in the command prompt, but you see a lot of so PowerShell is it also takes the dir and standard commands that you have in the normal shell, normal Windows command prompt. But PowerShell is a lot more powerful, I would say a framework for you to automate things. And, there are PowerShell scripts that are available, PowerShell programs that are available. So similarly, SDK, the CLI also supports PowerShell. Okay, so now let's come to, yeah, so now there are two versions of command line interface, 1.x and 2.x, but I would say just go ahead and use 2.x. That's the latest one. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and install the command CLI. I'm going to install the version 2.0. First, let me install it in Linux. Okay, there are a few prerequisites for Linux. Okay, so you must be able to extract or unzip the download. So you need to use the unzip command, right? And also it uses some of the libraries to be available, which should be there. So these are included by default in most major distributions of Linux. We support AWS CLI version 2 on 64-bit versions of recent distributions of CentOS, Fedora, Ubuntu, Amazon Linux, and Amazon Linux 2. Okay, so now if you want to install it on Amazon, sorry, not on Amazon Linux, I'm going to use Ubuntu. So let me just go ahead and copy this. Okay, what it does is it's downloading the Amazon Linux CLI from Amazon AWS.com. Okay, and then it's unzipping the CLI version 2, and then it's installing the CLI. So I'll just copy this whole thing. I'm just going to come back to my POT, clear the screen, and then let me just paste it. Yeah, so if you see, okay, unzip is not found. Okay, but I just have to install unzip. I assume that unzip would be there, but yeah, let me just install unzip. Okay, so now let me come back, copy this, paste it here, and install it. And I'll just go ahead and you just unzip the whole contents. I'm just going to install it now. sudo./aws install. Okay, cool. So now it's installed. So I'll just say AWS --- version. Yeah, so yeah, it's using AWS version CLI version 2.1.1. Clear the screen and run that once again. AWS - version. Yes, I've installed it. It is running on Python 3.7.3 under Ubuntu 2.2. So it just tells you that. Okay. Okay, so we have installed it in Linux. Let's install it in Windows also. If you want, you can copy this into a notepad and you can install it one after the other also, right? I mean, okay. So just install it one after the one, right? Where you just curl this, download this zip file, unzip that zip file, and then say sudo./aws/install. That's what I did in it, right? I mean, let's do it. Yeah, I just downloaded the zip file. I uninstalled the zip file into a folder called AWS, right? So that's what this thing did. That's what this command did. The second command, unzip. So then you're basically installing the CLI. If you go to AWS, you will see a executable called install, so which installs the entire CLI. That's what we did. And once you install it, it's there, but still we have not configured it. We'll come back and configure it. But let's first do it in Windows. We just did it in Linux. We'll also do it in Windows. So 64-bit version. Admin rights to install the software. Okay, you can also use a MSI to install. Okay, we're going to use an MSI to install. Yeah, I'll just go to my Windows machine. Just go to the browser. Yeah, I'll just come down. follow these steps. Pretty self-explanatory. Just click this, save this file. It's downloaded. I'll just double click that. Yeah, and follow the setup instructions. I accept, click next, next, install. Okay, it's going to install it and see program files, Amazon, AWS CLI version 2. That's the path where it's going to install it. Okay, so just finish it. Yeah, so it's installed. Okay, so now what you can do is you can open the command prompt, but I have to reopen my command prompt because it would have set the path. Let me reopen my command prompt. CMD. Just open my command prompt, maximize the window, then just say AWS -- version. Yeah, it seems to be running. Yeah, AWS CLI version 2.1.1 is installed. Okay, so that's done. Okay, and it uses Python 3.7.7 on Windows 10. Okay. If you want to uninstall, you can just go ahead and uninstall that. Okay, so now let's come and configure the AWS CLI. Okay, right now, you have to basically ensure that the AWS CLI that you have installed points to your account, correct? Your account. So now how do we configure it, right? So this is where the IAM users that we created earlier comes handy, right? The IAM credentials that we created, right? So where we created access key and secret key, correct? So that comes in handy. Okay, so now how do we install it? So let's just go here and follow the steps out here. Okay, you can do a quick configuration using AWS Configure. Okay, so where AWS Configure is a command that you supply where you can give the access key ID and secret key, and you can give the default region name and default output format. Okay, so now let's go back to the console. And if you all remember, when we did our IAM exercise, we created IAM user, and in IAM user you had two steps in the IAM user, right? Two checkboxes. One checkbox is whether you have access key, secret key, programmatic access or console access, right? So when you have programmatic access, this will be my user, this will be my access key, and secret key is something that you can download only once. If all of you have saved it, save that file, well and good. If you have not saved that file, you have to again recreate the access key. Okay, so now this is my RPL admin. Okay, so this is my access key and secret key. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and create one more access key, assuming that I've lost that file that I downloaded. I'm just going here, and then I'm just saying create an access key. Yeah, so I'll just download the CSV for the. It will allow you to download it only once. It will not allow you to download it multiple times. I'll just go ahead and save that file. It will be there in my downloads directory. Yeah, so RPL admin access keys. Just copy it. I'm just going to open it with Excel. Yeah, so I've just opened it with Excel. It will give me my access key and secret key for that IAM user. Okay, so this is my unique access key, unique secret key. Okay, if there are a billion IAM users, this will be unique across those billion IAM users, because this access key and secret key is the one that identifies my user, identifies my account. Okay, identifies my resources that I have within my AWS platform. Okay, so now this is something that is very, very important. So you can only download it only once, or you can show it here. Okay, but if the moment I close, I lose it, right? So then I can't get my secret key again once again. Okay, in this case, PM was the access key, right? I can't get the secret key used by this access key. You have to again, you have to delete it and recreate it. Okay. So now, okay, so I have this. Okay, this is the access key and secret key that I'm going to use. Okay, so now this belongs to my user, my IAM user called RPL admin. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just go to my command prompt. Okay, first let me do it in Linux. Okay, in Linux, I have AWS -- version, correct? Yeah, so that's my AWS CLI. So what I have to do is AWS configure. So if I say configure, AWS configure, it'll ask me for my access key. So let me come to my access key, copy this, go back, paste it, enter. It's going to ask for the secret key. Just copy the secret key from your Excel sheet from the CSV, paste it. Default region name, if you want to set your default region, you can just set your default region. I'm going to say AP South 1 is my default region. Okay, because Mumbai is the region that I'm using. Default output format, you can just leave it default, which is like JSON. Just enter it. Okay, so now it's done. So now what happens is when you do this AWS configure, it actually creates a file in the which says .aws cd tilde/aws. It will have two files in it. It will have something called config and it will have something called credentials. If you say cat credentials, it's going to create a profile called default profile, and it's going to store my access key and secret key within that. Okay, and config will have other config such as region and the default output format and things like that. It's stored in the config, but the credentials is the file which it creates, which stores the access key and secret key. And you can create multiple profiles. If you're dealing with multiple accounts, if you're dealing with multiple users, you can create multiple profiles within the credentials file and you can use that. Okay, so now let me go back. I can run commands like how I run commands, right? I can say AWS S3 ls. I want to basically list all my buckets in my S3. So, okay, this is a command. I'm just running this command. So what it does is it has like two buckets that are there in my S3. Okay, it is just listing out all those buckets, right? So similarly, there are multiple commands that are available for running using CLI, right? One such is what you see here. Okay, AWS help, AWS EC2 help. Like man, you have man, right? Yeah. So similarly, let me just go ahead and describe one of my EC2 instance. Okay. AWS EC2 CLI. You go here, you'll get the complete listing of how you can use the AWS EC2 command. Okay, I'm just going to say describe instances. Okay, yeah. AWS EC2 describe instances -- instance IDs, right? So I have my EC2 instance running here. So when I click on, when I use here, I'll be able to see all the properties of my EC2 instance, right? But rather, let me just grab one of the EC2 instance out here, instance ID, and just copy this, right? And then I go back to my AWS EC2. What is the syntax? Describe -instances. describe hyphen instances, and then hyphen instance hyphen IDs, hyphen instance hyphen IDs, right? And then I'll just paste my instance ID out here. It's going to make an API call, and then it's going to actually give me a JSON file of what that EC2 instance is all about, right? I mean, it's using so-and-so image ID. The instance ID is that it's a T2.micro. It has RPL Mumbai lab as the key name. It's provisioned in AP South 1A. Its default tenancy is a default tenancy. And what is the IP address? Yeah, and you can just keep pressing enter. It's going to give the whole thing. Yeah, it's going to just give the entire thing. It has so much in it. Yeah, that's it. So this is the So if you want, what you can do is you can just route that entire thing to a text file. Something is wrong with this. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me just AWS EC2 describe instances hyphen instance IDs. Then come back, grab your instance ID, paste it greater than. Okay, greater than pipe symbol is for where it will basically send it to a text file. Okay, instance.txt. Yeah, so now if you see, you would have generated a file called instance.txt. I'll just vi instance.txt. Yeah, see, it gives you the complete, it gives everything. It describes the whole thing. It will tell you what subnet it is created and what VPC, right? What are the underlying EBS volumes attached to the EC2 instance? What is that volume ID, right? And then what sort of network interfaces that it has got? What is the public IP? It tells you everything, A to Z. It gives you everything. Okay, what is IPv6 address? What is a private IP address? What is the key name that is used? What is security groups, right? It's giving you the entire security group details. Okay, this is just a read. You can also provision a EC2 instance using command line. Okay, you can if you go here, okay, you have this, right? So you can go to the CLI command reference and go back, and then you can say create yeah. So you can reboot instances using command line interface. Okay, for example, I want to reboot that instance, right? I'll just do a go here. I'll just look at an example. Reboot instances hyphen instance IDs, right? Okay, it's reboot instances. I'll just come back here. I'll reboot my my private EC2 instance. Okay, I'm just going to reboot my private EC2 instance. Let me just come back here. I'll use the same command, but I'm just going to change certain things out here. Instead of describe instances, I'm just going to say reboot instances. Reboot instances, instance IDs. I'll just paste the instance ID of my private EC2 instance. No. Okay. Instead of reboot, let me just create stop. I'll just look at stop. I think stop would be better. Stop instances. Okay. Stop instances would be better. Stop instances, instance IDs. Yeah, it's stopping. So let me just go back to my console, refresh it. Yeah, so if you see this is being stopped. See this is being stopped and it will get stopped in a while. Right, so that's kind of cool. It is, right? Using command line interface, you can interface, you can from your EC2 instance or from any other place, you just need to install the CLI, right? And you just need to use the CLI, configure the CLI using AWS Configure, and you just need to start issuing commands. See, now it's stopped. Okay, if you want to again start it, I think it is start instances. Start. Yeah. So it is current status, previous state is stop. Now it's in the pending state. Let me come back and refresh. Yeah, see it is pending state. It'll start in a while. It'll go into running stage in a while. Yeah, so it's running. Okay, so that's kind of cool it is. So now you have a complete command line reference available, right? I mean, it has all the services in it, a lot of services. Pretty much every other service that AWS has got. See here, all these are services of AWS, right? So if you go to S3, S3 has got so many services, so many commands that are available. S3, LS, CP, MB, MV, presign, RB, RM, sync. S3 sync is where you can use your S3 command line interface to sync the objects from your local machine to S3 or from S3 to local machine, right? And you can copy the objects. I'll just show you a simple example. Let me go to an S3 bucket. I'll just go to S3. I'll create a new bucket and then I'll upload an object. Okay, so right now I don't have any buckets. Okay, I'm going to create a bucket from the command line interface. Okay. S3 create bucket CLI. Okay, so for this you have to use S3 API. Okay. AWS S3 API create bucket -- bucket name, bucket configuration. So I don't want this. I'll just go ahead and create this -- bucket, my bucket -- region. So we'll just create a bucket there. Just paste it. I'll create it in AP South 1 is the region. AP - South 1 is the region, and bucket name is my RPL bucket - 16th November. Okay, this is the bucket that I'm going to create. Let me just hit enter. specified location constraint incompatible for the region specific endpoint. This request was sent to, okay, I will not give a region. Just leave it default. Okay. Maybe this is needed. Okay. AP South 1. Yeah, so it's created the bucket. Okay, so this is needed actually. Create bucket configuration, location constraint equal to AP South 1 is needed. Okay, so now if it created this bucket, so let me just come back to my S3 console and refresh my S3 console. Yeah, you see my RPL bucket 16th November is created. Okay, so it's created. Properties, I mean, I own it. Permissions, bucket block all public access is off actually. Okay, it's a public bucket. Okay, so now let me just come back. I'll add some objects to the S3 bucket. Again, just go AWS S3, put object CLI. Okay, so you have to use the put object. Example, just look at an example. Yeah, say AWS S3, just take this. Yeah. So this is basically doing a copying this file into S3. Okay, uploading this file into S3 into hyphen bucket. This is the bucket name. Okay, this is the key. Key is what is the object name. Hyphen body is the actual file that you're uploading into S3. Okay, so let me just go here. It's clear. I'm just going to ls-l. Okay, let me upload this example.python, okay, into S3 bucket, or this instance.txt into my S3 bucket. So that is body is instance.txt. Key is, I'll just put it in the root itself. Instance. The key is nothing but the name, right, or the key, because S3 is an object storage, right? Everything is a key value pair, right? Bucket is, I'll just give my bucket name. Okay. Yeah, so it uploaded the object, and this is the E tag. What is an E tag in S3? Can somebody answer? What is an E tag? E tag is a unique identifier for every object based on the contents of the object, right? It's like your MD5 hash. Every file has got an MD5 hash, right? So similarly, E tag also is a very unique identifier. If the object's contents changes, the E tag also changes. Properties changes, the E tag also changes. Okay. So now let me refresh. Yeah, you see that instance.txt is uploaded. Okay, so now this is how you use the command line interface. Okay, same way you can also configure in the Windows also, right? I'll say AWS configure. Okay, let's get the access key. This is the access key. Paste it, enter, come back, take the secret key, paste it, enter. Default region name is AP-South-1. Default output format is this thing. Let me execute the same set of commands. Okay, in fact, I'll just copy this stop instance. I'll come back to my Windows, paste it. So right now it is running. So I'm going to stop it. Yeah, it is stopping. Go back to my console. Refresh it. Yeah, it's stopping. See. So similarly, let's do some AWS S3 LS. Yeah, so it is listing all the buckets that I have. Okay, so let me upload probably. I'll go to my documents folder. I want to upload this hello.py, hello.python, correct? So let me go back, copy this, put object, come back to my command prompt, paste it. But here instead of instance.txt, let me give hello.py. It's the same command, nothing changes. Hello.py. Okay, that's the key. Oops. Okay, hello.py. Just yeah, so it's uploaded. Let me go back to my S3 console. Just refresh it. Yeah, so you see hello.python is uploaded into my S3 bucket. Okay, so now that's how you use the S3s. That's how you use the CLI. Okay, so now let's quickly shift gears to the Boto3. Okay, so AWS command line interface is something that we saw. So now let's just look into the Boto3. Where did it go? Just close this Python pip. Quick start Boto3. Okay, so now I'm in the quick start for Boto3 using Python, right? I want to use my Python to interact with my AWS, right? So that's the library for that is Boto3. Okay, we have installed Boto3 and we have installed CLI, right? And we have installed Python, right? And now we have also done the AWS configure, right? We have done that. So now how do you use Boto3? So this is how, these are some examples of using Boto3. Okay, so now let's write a small Python program which will interact with S3 and which will print all the bucket names in S3 that I have. Okay, so now let me just go back to my thing. Okay, let me write the program here. I'll copy paste it from here. Okay, I'm just going to use import Boto3. That's the first statement that I give for importing my Boto3, right? So let's use Amazon S3. So you have to say S3 equal to, you're instantiating a new variable called S3, Boto3.resource. You have to use S3 as the resource name. Okay, and then print out the bucket names. This is simple Python program which I'm using Boto3. Okay, so print out bucket names for bucket in s3.buckets.all. You're printing bucket.name. Very simple, right? I'm instantiating a new variable called S3. I am using Boto3 as the library. Boto3 will, within Boto3, I'm using resource as S3. And then I'm using for bucket in s3.buckets.all, right? And then you're iterating through the entire bucket list within S3. You're printing the bucket.name. Okay, it's very simple. I'll just save this Python program. Just say list s3 bucket dot py. Okay, this is the program that I've created. So let me just go run this program out here. So paste it, save as list s3 buckets dot python. There in my documents, right? Okay, so I'm there in documents, list s3 buckets dot python, correct? So now let me just run python list s3 buckets dot python. Yeah, see, it's actually listing down all the buckets that I have in S3. It's very similar to AWS S3 LS. AWS S3 LS also gives the same output. Okay, and list S3 buckets is basically what I'm doing is I've written a Python program using Boto3. Using Boto3 as the Python library, and within Python, I'm actually trying to, list all the S3 buckets within my user. But for this, the prerequisite is AWS CLI should be installed because it makes an API call at the end of the day, right? AWS CLI should be installed, and AWS CLI should be configured to use your IAM user. Okay, to use your IAM users, which has the access key and secret key. So then you'll be able to create your own programs, Python programs, and you'll be able to, run those programs. And tomorrow, when you build the Python code and when you build the Python libraries, you'll be able to run those Python libraries within your EC2 instances or within your virtual machines. Okay, so that's how useful it is. Similarly, if you want to upload some object, right, you can also upload the object. Okay, so now let me just create one object, maybe a JPEG file, and then let me upload that into my S3. Okay, now here, this is the program. So now let me come back and then let me just rewrite my program a bit, saying, just create a new one. Copy this. Okay. Hash upload a file in my S3 bucket. Okay, test.jpg. Okay, I'll just download some JPEG from the internet, and then I'll just use the test.jpg. Correct, and then you're opening this within data. Then what you're doing is s3.bucket. Change this my bucket to your bucket name. What is our bucket name here? This is my bucket name. Dot put object key is test.jpg, body equal to data. Okay, that's basically that. That's all you're trying to do here. Let me save this as put object dot python. Okay, so I've just created this. Let me just go back here. Let me create a new text file. Okay, I'm just going to save this as put object dot python. Put object dot python. Save it. Yeah, you have saved it. Now let's just download some test.jpg from somewhere. I'll use the AWS logo itself. Save images. I'll go to the documents. Okay, it's a PNG. That's okay. We'll just change it. Test.png, right? Okay. Okay. So now if you see, if you go to documents folder, you have test.png. Test.png, which is the AWS logo itself. Let me just go and modify this to test.png instead of JPEG. It's just a format, that's it. Just change it here. Test.png, yeah, it's done. I'll just save this. Come to my command prompt, cls dir. Yeah, test.png is there, put object.python is there. So let me just run python put object.python. Yeah, so it's copied successfully. Let me just go back to my bucket. Let me refresh my bucket. Yeah, see, test.png is uploaded into my S3 bucket using a simple Python program. But in order to use this Python program, you have to import this Boto3 library, and you have to install Python, AWS CLI, and Boto3 on the machine from where you're running the Python program. It's very, very important. Okay, and what you are having is you have configured your S3, you have configured your AWS configure using AWS configure. So where it stores that from. So if you go back here, it would have created a folder called .aws, cd.aws. Okay, and it'll have config and credentials. So if I say notepad credentials, at any point you want to change your credentials, you can just go and change your credentials here. Okay, this is where it is actually taking the access key and secret key to perform all the API operations for both your CLI and your Python program, right? Python Boto3 SDK program. So this is where it takes the credentials from. For example, I'll just go ahead and edit this credentials. I'll just make it wrong. I'll make it an incorrect credentials. I'll just add some random characters here. Okay, so let me actually add it to the end so that I can revert it back. I'm just trying to make it wrong. I give the credentials as wrong. At the end, I'm just adding one extra one, which is wrong, correct? Because it's not a valid credentials, right? I just saved it. Let me close my command prompt, come back. Just say command, just go to command prompt, cd documents. Okay, I'm going to run list s3 buckets, right? Python list s3 buckets.py. Yeah, so it will give me a error. It will say that the access key, AWS access key you provided does not exist in our records because it's wrong. I've given a wrong access key, correct? So now let me just go and delete it, delete that last one. I'll save it. Okay, just let me run it again. Let me run my program once again. Yeah, so now it comes. So, you understand it uses the CLI's credentials that you have installed in the system to make the API calls, because at the end of the day, your Python program makes an API call. Okay, it makes an API call to S3 using the Boto3 library that you have installed. Okay, same way you can just run it in the Linux also. Linux also works the same way. Nothing changes here, right? I mean, you've already installed your CLI and you have installed Boto3. Which directory that I'm in Ubuntu directory. So now let me just create a new program called vi. I don't want put object. I'll open the other file. What's the other file? List s3 buckets. Open with notepad. Okay, I'll just copy this whole thing. Copy this, come back to my putty. Vi list s3 buckets dot python. So here's this code. Save it. I just saved it. ls-l. Okay. So list python buckets.python is there. So now let me just execute python 3 list s3 buckets.python. Yeah, so it's going to behave the same way. code is the same and it's just going to behave the same way because I've installed Python even on my Linux. I've installed Boto3 SDK. I've installed AWS CLI and I've done the AWS configure and I'm trying to run the program using Python. Okay, cdetailed.aws ls-l. So you have credentials, right? Cat credentials gives you this credentials. Okay, so that's how very simple that you can use AWS CLI and Boto3 framework using Python, and you can just do a lot of things using Python, right? Okay. Yeah, so and you can use SQS. I mean, SQS is a simple queue service, right? And you create a queue and then you add objects to the queue, right? Using this, and you get so many other code examples, EC2 examples you get. Okay, describe your EC2 instances, managing. You can start instances using this. Okay. Yeah, this is the Python code. And you get so many examples available online, right? So here in this case, EC2 instances, I want to instance. Okay, let me, as a last example, let me start the EC2 instances that I stopped using my Python program. We did it using CLI earlier, but let me just use my Python program to. Yeah, so this is the code that I have. Okay, so you're using Boto3.client EC2, and it's also importing a few more libraries, Boto core.exceptions. So it's making the code a little more robust. But yeah, for us, let's just do a simple, yeah, EC2.start instances, instance IDs, and instance ID equal to sys.arg v2. Okay, I mean, let's just take this. I'm good with just writing a very simple code. I'm just going to use import Boto3. Okay, this is not needed. I'm just going to use instance ID equal to, I'll just instantiate. I'll just give the system instance ID. Let me come back to my EC2 console. This is stop, correct? Yeah, so I'm just going to private EC2 instance is stop. So let me grab that instance ID from here, come back here, put it here. Okay, and then I'll just use EC2 equal to Boto3.client, EC2. EC2 is the service that I'm using. Then I'm just going to use this EC2 start instance. EC2.start instances, instance ID is equal to instance ID, comma dry run equal to true. Okay, I don't want to do dry run. I'll just make it false so that it's just right. It's used for, trying multiple times. Okay. Yeah, I think we are good. Let me just save this as start ec2.python. Just copy this, go back to my notepad. I'll just do a paste it, save as, start ec2.python. Okay, so let me just go to my command prompt, dir python start ec2.python. Yeah, let's come back to my console, ec2 console. Yeah, see it's starting. Perfect, it's just running very fine. You see it's running. I've started my ec2 instance using Python code. Okay, and then you get so much of examples here, right? Okay, so I'll just leave this here, right? And you can just go through this and perform some examples. I'm just going to give you those small code examples as well. Okay, you can try it out. Okay, and I'm also going to delete my IAM key so that when the video gets published, nobody is going to be able to use my key that I have, which is the best practice. I'm going to delete this, delete, deactivate, deactivated, the access key, just going to delete it. Yes, so it's deleted. Cool, deleted that key. Okay, so now I'm going to give you those examples. Okay, you can go through this. I'll give you, these are for Python. Okay. AWS CLI. Yeah, just going to get this. So just follow these steps. These are pretty simple, straightforward. In order to install the CLI, you get here. Okay, in Linux, either you can use that Linux installer. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Okay, and once you have the CLI, once you have the CLI installed, so then what you do is configure the CLI. Configure your CLI. Okay, so how do you configure your CLI? Okay, installing the CLI is this. Okay, in fact, I'll give you the user guide directly instead of getting confused. Configure the CLI. Yeah, this is how you go and configure the CLI. Just read through this. It's pretty straightforward. You have to just use AWS Configure and install it. Okay, just install Python. Learn Python. Then install Python. Okay, installing Python would be here itself. In any of your W3 schools, you will also get a thing to install Python. Okay, so this percent of, yeah, Python install is here. Or you can use in Windows. Go here, download the installer and install Linux, Ubuntu, yeah, you can follow this article. Install it in Ubuntu. Okay, then Boto3. Install Boto3. You can either use a pip install, yeah, or follow this. Okay, so then install CLI, configure the CLI. So then execute sample CLI commands. One AWS S3 LS should list all the S3 buckets in your account. Okay. In configure CLI, use the access key and secret key from IAM user. If you don't have one, create a key, create an access key from the IAM console for the user. Very simple. How you create it? You can go to IAM console, go to that particular user under security credentials. Click on that user, go to security credentials and create access key. If you want, I can give you. Okay. Just click on create access key. Okay, it should list all the S3 buckets in your account. Okay, I'm going to give you the sample code as well, whatever I've created for S3. Sample code one, list S3 buckets using Python Boto3 library, SDK library. Put object, put an object to S3 bucket. 3, start an EC2 instance. start an EC2 instance. Okay. Change this to your instance ID. Okay, either stop or start. You can just use either of this. You can use stop also. Okay, and you can run it from anywhere. You can run these programs to be run from Windows or Linux, either ways, Windows or Linux. Okay, I'll give you some more references out here for Boto3. Okay, Boto3, you can go through this code examples. It will give you the code examples here, right? Amazon EC2 examples. Yeah, you can just go here. You can download this code, right? And then you also have a full developer guide for everything. Okay. All right. So I think we are good for today. So let's kind of get into the breakout rooms, and you can actually start performing these assignments. I'm going to give the file. Okay. I've just pasted it in the chat. So you can just pick it up from there and start playing around. Okay. And just follow the steps. You should be good. Okay. Install Python first on both your Windows or Linux. Then install Boto3. Okay. So then come and use AWS CLI, install AWS CLI. Okay. And then configure your AWS CLI. Okay. So then what you can do is once your AWS CLI is configured, then go grab your access key from your AWS console, IAM console for your user. You would have downloaded it when you created the IAM user. Okay. If not, you can go create a key for yourself in the IAM. Okay, and use that access key and secret key for your respective IAM users. Right, I've given a screenshot of that where you can just create an access key. Okay, and then use that access key. Use that access key in your AWS configure command. So then, as a sample, just go to your command prompt, type AWS S3 ls. It should basically list the S3 buckets that are present in your account. At least it should not give an error. Don't have any S3 buckets, it's fine, but it should not at least give an error. Okay. So any doubts? Yeah.
Sir, I have Python 3.7. Is it okay for doing this?
Yeah, Python 3.7 is okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So I think there are a few students, who have some issues with the RDS lab. Z062, I think you have an issue with the RDS lab. So let's get into, I'll come to your breakout room and then help you with it. Okay, the rest of you can just go to your breakout rooms and follow the steps that I've given, right? And if you're stuck somewhere, I mean, no, don't worry. I mean, you can get a video, get a copy of this video, and then you can play this video and then follow the steps I've done. Okay.
So, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm A36, sir. Actually, I have same problem with RDS, sir. I have stuck with in the
Okay.
process of
Sure. Sure. I'll
network.
come. Yeah, I will come to your breakout room. A36, right?
30. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll come to your breakout room.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Which breakout room you're part of? Who's your
Shivalila
mentor?
ma'am's breakout room.
Okay. Okay. I'll
Shivalila.
come to ma'am's Yeah, I'll come to ma'am's breakout room and then I'll help you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning.
Sir, even I had a problem in RDS, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. I couldn't connect to the subnet there, sir. I have
Okay.
already created subnets, but it's get. Yes, sir.
Sure. I'll come to your room. So
Okay,
which
sir.
mentor's room that you belong to?
Sindhura, ma'am, sir.
Sindhura ma'am. Okay. I'll come there.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
Sir,
Sure. All right.
sir, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, you've done all this stuff using AWS Ubuntu, right? Uh, for Linux
Yes.
US.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
So,
I've used Ubuntu. You can also use Amazon Linux. It's not a problem. You can use any flavor of Linux.
but I have Ubuntu installed in my laptop. So,
Mm-hmm.
still I need to connect that
Yeah. Yeah.
AWS.
It's the same. Yeah. It's the same. Follow the same steps. In fact, the reason why I chose Ubuntu over Amazon Linux is a lot of you said you are using Ubuntu, right? So that's why
Yeah. Yes.
all the commands will be the same, like apt update,
Okay.
sudo apt update, sudo apt install Python, and all that is going to be common for everything.
So I
Installing
don't need
Python and
to
things.
do SSH before all this, right?
You don't have to, correct. If you're already using it, you don't have to do SSH, correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sure. You can go into the breakout rooms.